Joe, I just had a message pop up that we're live streaming.
We're ready to go.
Thank you. This is John Gregg. I'm the mayor of the town of Seabrook Island, and I am calling to order the meeting of the town council for August 2021. At this time, I will ask that the town clerk confirm that notice of this meeting has been posted as is appropriate, and that the other requirements of the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act have been satisfied.
Yes, they have.
Thank you for that. We will proceed in order of the agenda. And the first item on the agenda are minutes for approval by town council. Of those minutes, the first are the minutes of the town council meeting of July 27th, 2021. A copy of those minutes has been provided to all members of council. May I have a motion for approval of those minutes as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any comments, questions, or discussion regarding the minutes? Hearing none, I will now call for a vote for approval of the minutes as presented. All in favor of approval, please signify your approval by saying aye. Aye. I think that was unanimous. So the minutes of the town council meeting of July 27th, 2021 are approved. Next up, we have the minutes from the Ways and Means Committee meeting of August 10th, 2021. Again, a copy of those minutes has been provided to all members of council. May I have a motion for approval of the minutes of the Ways and Means Committee meeting of August 10, 2021 as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, or discussion regarding the minutes of the Ways and Means Committee meeting of August 10th, 2021? Hearing none. I will now call for a vote for approval of the minutes. All in favor of approval of the Ways and Means Committee meeting minutes for the meeting of August 10th, 2021, please signify your approval by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Well, that was definitely unanimous. Finally, we have the town council pre-budget workshop minutes from August 17th, 2021. Again, a copy of those minutes has been provided to all members of council. May I have a motion for approval of those minutes as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, or discussion of the minutes of the town council pre-budget workshop of August 17th, 2021? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of the town council pre-budget workshop minutes from August 17th, 2021, please signify your approval by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Again, those minutes have been approved as presented. Next up, we have the town financials. I will be providing a report of the town's financials. The total fund balance for the period ending July 31st, 2021 was $6,216,503, an amount about $850,099 more than the balance as of July 31st, 2020, and about $1,219,598 more than for the same period of 2019. Unrestricted revenue for July totaled $152,370, and unrestricted revenue for the year totaled $1,095,171, The year-to-date amount represents about 82% of the 2021 annual budget and is about $280,984 more than for the same period in 2020. Expenditures for July totaled $94,370, and expenditures for the year totaled $511,732. The year-to-date amount is about 36% of the 2021 annual budget. Expenditures for the year were about $29,104 more compared to the same period of 2020. The excess of revenues over expenditures was $58,000 for the month of July, and excess of revenues over expenditures for the year was $583,440 compared to an excess of revenues over expenditures of about $331,558 as of July 31st, 2020. That increase in excess revenues over expenditures reflects a significantly greater revenue in the period this year as compared to the same period of 2020. Any questions concerning the town's financials? Hearing none. Next up on the agenda, we will check on whether or not we have received any citizens' comments in advance of this meeting. Catherine, have you received any citizen comments in advance of this meeting? I'm asking the town clerk, have you received any?
Oh, sorry.
comments in
Yes,
advance of the
I
meeting?
did.
Yes, all right, please
I
go
did.
ahead.
I received an email from Andy. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce any names here. Malinowski. He would like to thank council for bringing attention to fishing on the beach. He watched the town meeting from last month, and he's concerned about making regulations on the beach to permit fishing in certain areas because he's concerned that most of the fishing will congregate in front of his house. The second one came from Mr. Seabrook. It was a letter to Mayor Gregg. And he was also concerned about fishing on the beach and was against making any regulations for restricting fishing on the beach. He wanted to increase, sorry, I'm summarizing these, but because this one is rather long, he wanted to he feels strongly that we should not be regulating fishing on the beach. Any questions?
Any questions concerning those comments? I do have a question for you, Catherine. Have those comments been, to your knowledge, have they been shared with all members of council?
I believe they have, but if not, I have all the copies on my desk. I also have a couple more. I just wanted to break them up a little bit, or would you like me to read them all at once?
You have other comments? You received other comments?
Yes, sir. Yes, I do.
Well, if you can gather them together, I'll, in the meantime, let me check with Joe. Joe, have you received any comments? Citizens comments?
I have one. I'd actually given that to Catherine. I'm not sure if that was one of the ones she was going to review, but we did receive one from Chuck Cross by email regarding town council's recent discussion about e-bikes on the beach. And it was his hope or his desire that That would not apply to Class 1 e-bikes, which under state statute are, at least as far as use on public roadways in the state, they're not classified as motor vehicles. So it was his desire that a Class 1 e-bike not be prohibited on the beach, with that being a pedal assist bicycle and not necessarily one with a throttle. I know some of the ones that we've had issues and concerns with were not Class 1 bicycles. So that's one we may want to talk about when we get to the beach patrol discussion under my report.
All right, thank you, Joe. Any others?
We had received
I
several. We had received several in relation to the DSO open house, and all of those were reviewed and discussed during the open house meeting yesterday.
All right, thank you. Catherine, did you have any further
I had
comments?
two more comments. Sorry to interrupt. I had two comments, one from Paul McLaughlin and one from his wife, Susan McLaughlin. They both were not in favor of the short-term rental ordinance, and they would like stronger regulations. They don't think that our current short-term regulations are strong enough.
Very good, thank you. I believe I had received both the comments from both Paul McLaughlin and his wife, and have shared those with members of council. And I only wish to acknowledge having received those comments. And I had responded to both, so I believe all members of council have seen my response to their comments. With that, there being no further citizens' comments, we will now proceed to the reports of standing committees, commissions, and boards. First up, for a report concerning public relations and communications, I'll call on Councilwoman Fox.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a successful Radio Net practice on Sunday, August 15th at 8 p.m. With 7 Seabrook Island ham radio operators in attendance. We had 6 items on Tide Lines. We just today had one on the municipal election for 2021. We had an announcement of today's meeting. We had 2 posts on the DSO open house. One was on August 12th and another was a reminder on Sunday, August 22nd. We also had TOSI clips for our Ways and Means Committee meeting, and also an announcement of the mosquito spraying that took place on August 11th and 12th. As far as our website goes, we had 2 comment portals open for the DSO open house. That portal is still open for comments. And there's a second one open right now for the variance 176 for people who are interested in that. In addition, the information for the 2021 municipal election has been posted to our website. And that was it as far as communications go. I have been working on the committee's project where I was asked to look at and make recommendations for committees. I've spoken to everyone on council privately. I've been back and forth with Jerry on some emails, and I think within the next week, I'll be ready to present something semi-formal to all of you to read before our September Ways and Means Committee meeting. And that's pretty much the end of my report.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions for Pat concerning her report? Hearing none. Thank you again, Pat, and I look forward to your further effort with respect to the structuring of council's committees. I think that's a very important effort. Okay, next up, we'll have the report for the Public Safety Committee and Special Projects, and I'll call on Councilman Goldstein to give that report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The public safety, we did not have a meeting. We had our meeting previous month. This month, we will be taking up. Scott Cave, our consultant, provided us with an after action report on our previous DRC exercise, the hurricane. We'll be taking that up, reviewing it, and he will be a participant in our meeting in September. And I have nothing on special projects, and that is all.
Very good. Thank you for that. Councilman Goldstein, any questions for Barry? All right, hearing none. And now we'll have a report from Councilwoman Finke regarding beach administration and community and government relations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since our last council meeting, and I may have mentioned this at the Ways and Means meeting, but Joe and I sat down with Beach Patrol with Rob, who heads up the company we contract with, and just had a discussion about kind of following up on council's discussion about fishing on the beach, and on a couple issues of him talking to some of his crew about being more observant and a bit more assertive. I think we often hear the complaints, but we don't hear all the good stuff that Beach Patrol does. But we did sit down with Rob and had a really good meeting. In fact, he headed from the meeting out to the beach to talk to the crew that was out there then. So it's just a little bit of oversight to make sure that Beach Patrol is doing what council wants them to do on the beach. So that was a good meeting a couple weeks ago. And then I also wanted to report that the Community Promotion Grants Committee, we had some money still left. We met last Thursday. We had 3 applications pending. One of them we did not fund. Fantastic local charity. It just did not meet the criteria of keeping the money within the town. So we did not fund that one, but we funded Green Space Conservancy had put in a new application for a grant for the signs they use to mark Conservancy property. We approved that grant for $535. And the Lauren Rust with Low Country Marine Mammal Network, who runs our dolphin education program. We talked about this at the last meeting. She had put in a request if the town would help with some matching money from some NOAA funding she was getting for signage. And after, talking about it, I suggested she put in for the promotion grant instead of asking for just a direct an appropriation from the town. She did put in that grant application. The committee talked about it. We did fund the $750 request, but with lots of contingencies that she worked with Joe, make sure she has POA approval. There were pros and cons about the sign she's proposing that's similar to signs they've used down in Florida. So there's contingency on that money as she works with the design and with Joe and SAPOA through the end of the year. But otherwise, I personally think the sign she's proposing is really tall, but it has great information on it. So I think we'll work that out and she'll be able to use that money. And with that, I have nothing else to report.
Thank you, Jerry. As far as the Low Country Marine Mammal Network signage, I guess I have the feeling that this will be a matter for Joe to review whether or not the signs are permissible under the town's development standards ordinance regulation of signs. Is that your understanding?
Yes, and also where the sign is located, if it's, above the high water mark, she's going to need some approval from SAPOA. So there's some work to do there. And, the design she showed us was a very tall, as Joe said, really busy. There was tons of information on it, including about turtles. So she's more than willing to work with both Joe and SAPOA and working on that design and the location. I think the good thing is she can say to NOAA that she has this monetary support from the town, and I'll make sure she gets that matching money or that grant from NOAA before the fiscal year is up. I think that was part of the issue, that NOAA had this end of year money and she could show, yes, I have support from the town to move forward on this. So I think the end result will be positive. The committee was very supportive of some type of signage and more information on the beach. So in the end, I think it will all be good.
So Jerry, the money from the town under the grant, the community grants program will not be transferred until Joe is satisfied with the signage?
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Councilwoman Finke? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda, I believe, is a report for the Ways and Means Committee meeting of August. And I will give a report for updates to certain of the Ways and Means Committee items. Of course, we have the minutes from that meeting. First up, concerning the Development Standards Ordinance revision, through the efforts of the town administrator and Councilwoman Fox, information concerning the public rollout of the town's revised Development Standards Ordinance was timely added to the town's website and posted to Tidings. During the DSO open house held August 23rd, comments were received from residents participating in the presentation, and comments received prior to the presentation were addressed by the town administrator and the town's consultant. It is contemplated that the DSO Advisory Committee will be reconvened to address items that were the subject of resident comments. Concerning debris management contract renewal on August 16th, the town administrator issued a notice letter to the town's debris management services provider, Phillips and Jordan, informing the provider of the town's election to exercise its option for renewal of the service agreement for a period of 1 year ending August 31st, 2022. Concerning the debris monitoring contract award on August 17th, the town administrator issued a notice letter to a prospective provider of debris monitoring services, that is Tetra Tech Inc., informing them of the town's decision to award a contract for the services to them, subject to completion of a final agreement satisfactory to the town. And concerning inbound path repaving, repairs and coating of the inbound pedestrian path were completed the week of August 16th. I believe Councilwoman Finke had asked about the status of that. Again, trying to stay on the agenda. The next item of business on the agenda will be the, the Planning Commission. And I have nothing for that. I don't believe we have any report from the Planning Commission. Next after that is the Board of Zoning Appeals. We have nothing from the Board of Zoning Appeals. Following that, reports of ad hoc committees. I'm not aware of there being any reports of ad hoc committees. So next up, reports to the town officers, and first of those will be my report. And I am going to address items that were not included in the Ways and Means Committee updates. Special committee with respect to the Greenbelt allocation, members are reminded of the town's opportunity to designate projects for use of the town's allocation of the Charleston County Greenbelt program, and the proposal to establish a special committee to identify potential projects within the town. I am pleased to confirm that Councilwoman Finke has volunteered to serve on that committee, as have Ray Hoover, president of the Seabrook Island Property Owners Association, Lorinda Rapp, Director of Environmental Education at St. Christopher Camp and Conference Center, and Lucy Hoover, President of Seabrook Island Green Space Conservancy. At this time, I call for a motion to approve establishment of the special committee as described with the aforesaid initial members.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion concerning the establishment of the committee with the aforesaid initial members? Hearing none. All in favor of establishment of the committee with the aforesaid initial members, please signify your approval by saying aye.
Aye.
I think that was unanimous. Next up, I have a matter concerning a land lease for a debris site. I remind members that at the Ways and Means Committee meeting, I mentioned that a land lease had been offered to the town for use of a parcel as a site for temporary debris storage and reduction. Members have been provided a copy of a lease agreement by which Commonwealth Foundation for Cancer Research is offering a lease for the debris site to the town within land identified by Charleston County parcel identification number 204-0000-111. The cost to the town for this lease is a one-time fee of $5,000. This site will be simultaneously available with the site at the Seabrook Island Club's Equestrian Center that is a pasture nearest to Town Hall. At this time, you have included in your packets a copy of the land lease that I have referred to, together with an exhibit for that land lease that shows the outline of the premises in which the debris site would be located. At this time, I call for a motion to approve entry into the land lease and for payment of the one-time fee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments, or discussion concerning approval of the land lease and payment of the one-time fee? Hearing none. I'll ask that members of council signify their approval of the lease and the payment of the fee by saying aye.
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 Aye. That makes it unanimous. So we will enter into that land lease and we will proceed with payment of the one-time fee. Next item I want to touch on is establishment of an ad hoc committee to identify uses for funding under the American Rescue Plan Act. I remind members of the recommendation of the town administrator that a committee be established to identify potential uses of funding that is expected to be distributed to the town under the American Rescue Plan Act. To date, in response to inquiries seeking participation on an ad hoc committee, representatives have been identified by SAPOA. They were Ray Hoover and Heather Payton, representative of Bohicket Marina, Mike Schuler, representative from St. Christopher Camp and Conference Center, Bob Lawrence, and representative from Seabrook Island Utility Commission, Lee Vancini. I will serve as the town's representative on the ad hoc committee. At this time, I call for a motion to approve establishment of the ad hoc committee as described with the aforesaid initial members.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, discussion concerning the establishment of the ad hoc committee with the initial members?
Can you just repeat the names again one more time?
I'll be happy to. Representative identified by SAPOA are Ray Hoover, he's the president, and Heather Payton, of course, the executive director. Bohicket Marina, Mike Schuler. St. Christopher Camp and Conference Center, Bob Lawrence, better known as Father Bob. and Seabrook Island Utility Commission, Lee Vancini. That's the Commissioner, Lee Vancini. Have it, Joe?
That's all I needed. Thank you.
Thank you. There having been a motion and a second, I will now call for a vote for approval of the establishment of the ad hoc committee with the initial members. All those in favor, please signify your approval by saying aye.
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 That is approved unanimously. And now, the next item I have is the discussion concerning entry in a memorandum of understanding with Seabrook Island Property Owners Association concerning investigation of solutions to recurring vehicular backups on Seabrook Island Road. In recent informal discussions, SAPOA has advocated for local organizations to cooperatively explore potential solutions to recurring vehicular backups on Seabrook Island Road. On the recommendation of the town administrator, a proposed memorandum of understanding has been prepared for consideration by the town and SAPOA. Members have been provided a copy of the MOU. Members' attention is directed to the contemplated preparation of statements under the MOU to be presented to consultants to solicit assistance with developing solutions. Council is not being asked at this time to approve the MOU, but is asked to consider the MOU and inform the mayor of any comments or questions concerning the proposed cooperative effort. So no vote today, but I do ask that you take a look at that MOU. Again, I've mentioned the background, and I welcome all comments and questions concerning this effort. And finally, notification of council of completion and availability of the 2021 update of the Charleston Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Members have been provided a memorandum pertaining to notification of completion and availability of the 2021 update of the Charleston Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. While it is not necessary for the town to adopt this update to maintain eligibility for participation in the community rating system regime for National Flood Insurance Program premium discounting, it is necessary for council to be formally notified and for the town to certify that notification. Certification of council notification at this August council meeting will be forwarded to Charleston County Building Services, who administer the Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. So I am advising you, you have been notified of completion of the update and its availability in the memorandum you've been provided. You'll find the URL to access the update. And I am informing you that indeed we will certify that notice has been provided to town council. And with that, we will move on to report of the town administrator stroke zoning administrator. Joe, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of quick items just for information. The first is our monthly beach patrol update. I'll try to put that up on the screen here. This data is through the end of July, so 17 weeks of our annual beach patrol schedule, 122 days of service. To date, they have issued 317 warnings. Compared to last year, that's down. Last year at this time, we were at 476. We've had 2 citations issued, 2 ordinance summons. The first one was early in the year, back in April, for an individual going into the dunes The most recent one, which was in the week of July 18th, that was for an individual who had a dog off leash when and where a dog was required to be on leash. We've had 0 calls to the sheriff, 178 observed leash law violations. Of those, 154 or 87% have been in the general beach area, 13% within the critical habitat area north of Boardwalk number 1. We did want to point out that is, as far as the prevalence of violations in the critical habitat, 13% is quite a bit higher than the percentage last year when it was 8% in the critical habitat and 92% in the general beach area. That was an item that Jerry mentioned when we had a meeting with Rob with Beach Patrol, that we wanted them to give particular attention to, just based on the basis and the reason for having those protections in the critical habitat. Not necessarily that we're looking to go out and write a citation for every person who has an unleashed pet, but asking them to be more mindful and perhaps more forceful in enforcing the ordinance in that area. As far as observed dune violations, we've had 30 so far this year. That's a bit lower than last year. We had 45 through the same period. 89 glass violations, that's significantly less. It's about half what was observed last year. 5 vehicle violations, and some of those going forward may be bicycle related, particularly certain class of e-bicycle. We've had 1 beached vessel. As far as other services, particularly aid and those type things, first aid, 5 instances, 1 fishing order. That's an instance when Beach Patrol determines that an individual is fishing in a location that may constitute a hazard to other users of the beach. So we've had 1 of those, 0 rescues, 1 instance with rescue watercraft. That's the RWC there. We've had 14 stings, which is good, but I will point out we are getting into our peak stinging season. Late July last year is when we started to see those numbers spike. So far we've had 14. You can see the busiest week was the last week of July so far. I would expect once we get our August numbers, those will continue to go up. Through the same period last year, we had 69. So you can see they are down quite a bit, but the last year's data for week, the same date range was picking up a little bit of the first week of August. Swim assist, 0, boat assist, 0, other 15, and we've had 44 days of trash pickup on the beach. Before I get into the question, an issue related to e-bikes, are there any questions or comments about any of the Beach Patrol data through the end of July? So hearing none, just a reminder, we've now moved into the 3rd phase of our Beach Patrol season. So we had through August 15th, 4 Beach Patrol officers and 2 vehicles. As of August 16th, that's dropped down to 2 Beach Patrol officers and 1 vehicle. Prior to August 16th, we were operating from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Once we get into this period that we just entered last week, our hours will drop from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So through September 7th, we'll have 2 people, 1 vehicle. And then the last few weeks, which will be September 8th through 30th, it'll be 1 beach patrol officer and 1 vehicle from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Last item was just a brief discussion about the comment that was received and whether it's the town's intent for the prohibition on e-bikes would apply to all e-bikes, or whether the intent was that we would allow Class 1 e-bikes, which are the pedal assist bicycles, to operate on the beach. And just a reminder, the last time we talked about Class 1 e-bikes, there is some language that was adopted at the state level last year in the Road and Highway Act, which now classifies a Class 1 e-bike as a bicycle and not a motor vehicle. I know we're talking about a beach and not necessarily a road, but is the intent that our prohibition on electric bicycles would apply across the board to all types of e-bikes, or would we, following that amendment that was made at the state level, allow the Class 1 e-bikes, which in order for the electronic motor to kick in, an individual has to be physically pedaling the bike. It's not like other types of classes of e-bike, which have a throttle, which someone can basically just turn the throttle and move the bike forward. You actually have to be physically pedaling the bicycle, and it's not designed to be a replacement for human effort. It's intended to supplement and assist the pedaling, not replace the pedaling. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to put that before council, just to get your feedback.
So I have no objection to treating the Class 1 pedal assist bicycles as bicycles on the beach. But I do have a concern for how Beach Patrol will go about making the distinction or differentiation. I believe it's true that a Class 1 pedal assist bicycle can coast. So the rider stroke operator can rest his feet for some distance and decelerate. But as long as he wants to, the operator will need to continue to pedal to keep the bicycle moving at a desired pace. If he stops pedaling, the motor doesn't drive the bicycle and it will just coast to a stop. But the question I have is that going to be a challenge for Beach Patrol to be able to figure out whether a bicycle they see on the beach is truly a pedal assist bicycle or it's I'll call it an offensive electric bicycle?
Potentially. I mean, I know the issues that were reported to us. There was, pictures and information that came in, where you could clearly see there was a throttle and people were using those bicycles without pedaling. As far as what Beach Patrol's capabilities are to make that determination, that would be a discussion I'd have to have with Beach Patrol. I couldn't tell you right offhand.
Well, I think that'd be worth talking to them about it. I don't want to put them in a position of having a challenge to enforce that. It would be just, unreasonably difficult. Any other questions for Joe on this topic? Any other comments? Hearing none. So Joe, other than the town determining that it will treat those pedal assist bicycles as bicycles. Is there anything that the town needs to do with its ordinance?
I'd have to look at that. I think that we do have some cover with the definition that's in the state statute where, the class 1 e-bike, as long as it meets those criteria, is not classified as a motor vehicle. But I would have to go back and just make sure that there wouldn't be any issue with the way it's worded in our ordinance.
All right, well, I appreciate if you'll do that and let us know what you've concluded. Thank you.
All right. The next item is a quick update on where we stand with short-term rental permitting and enforcement. We just last week surpassed our 500th permit for the 2021 calendar year. We've actually issued more than 501. We're actually at 521 total permits. But as far as active rentals, we have 501. The reason for that is when a property is early in the year, if a property owner comes in and they obtain a license and a permit to rent the property, and they end up selling the property at some point over the course of the year, under our ordinance, the new property owner would have to come in and obtain a new license and a new short-term rental permit. So of those 521 permits that we've issued so far, 20 were for properties that were sold, meaning the prior owner already had a license, the property was sold, the new owner came in and obtained a new license upon acquiring the property. So I did want to give you just kind of a brief summary of kind of what we're seeing as far as some of the data related to short-term rentals. We actually went in and we broke them out by those that are within an association or regime. We also looked at whether they were, and the terms that you'll see on here are actually taken from the new DSO, which obviously hasn't been adopted at this point, but kind of classifying them as either condo, townhome, cluster home, and then single family home within a regime and single family home outside of a regime. So we actually went through and pulled all that information by regime, just so we could see locations on where those rental units are actually physically located within the town. So we do have all of that data. And then we did break it down just in some summary type data, which I can get these things out of the way here. Pull up. So to date, as of last week, again, we've had 501 total short-term rental permits. The breakdown, 404 of those are located within an association or regime. So those are either the townhome, the condo, the cluster development. And when I say cluster development, those are detached units, but they're part of a regime or association. So think of like Summerwind and Tarpon Pond, and where you don't necessarily have a unit that sits on its own parcel. Typically, the parcel just follows the drip line of the building, and then there's a bunch of common open space that's owned by an association or regime. And then we also have some single-family homes that are generally located on smaller lots, but also within an association or regime. So St. Christopher Oaks and Hidden Oaks and the Village. Those are some of our single-family, small lot, single-family homes within regimes. And then we have the areas outside of regimes. That's essentially your basic standalone single-family home that sits on its own lot, not located within one of those regime areas. So in total, the breakdown, we have of the total 501, just under 40% are condos, a little over 20% are townhomes. 5.2% are single family homes within an association or regime. 15.8% are cluster homes. And then the remainder, just a hair under 20%, are single family homes that are not in an association or regime. So what this is basically illustrating is that approximately 80% of all the permitted short-term rental units within the town are mostly concentrated in those, what our current ordinance defines as multifamily developments, and about 20% are elsewhere scattered throughout the island in single family neighborhoods. And that was just this one here. We did also look at through some numbers that we had, as well as coordinating with COVAR, just to get an indication of the percentage breakdown of total units that are actually being offered for rent. We're still trying to nail down some of the single family numbers, because we can very easily pull data for how many lots are out there, but we don't have currently the total number of lots, the exact number of lots that are currently undeveloped. So when we look at the breakdown, for the different types of residential units, the condos and the townhomes, we're looking at about 35% plus or minus of the total number of condos and townhomes are actually being offered for rent at any point during the calendar year. The cluster homes is a little bit less, it's in the 20s. And the one that's harder to nail down with an exact number is the single family, both inside and outside of a regime. Taken as a total, based on the number of lots, it's about 7 to 8% of all the units in the town, of all the lots, single family lots in the town, have a short-term rental permit. But when we back out I know it's probably somewhere in the 350 to 400 range. When we back out, that number is probably going to land somewhere around 11% of single family homes having a short-term rental permit. So again, these numbers are going to change as we go through the course of the year. This is just kind of a snapshot in time, just to give you, a little bit more of an understanding on kind of the breakdown of where those units are actually located within different regimes, within different types of development throughout the island. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Yes, Jerry.
I don't necessarily have a question, but I do have a couple comments because of some of the community input we're getting. And I want to say a couple things. Number one, not all those permits are active all the time. If you talk to the major rental management companies, they will tell you that on average, these properties rent for about 72 days a year, usually Memorial Day through Labor Day. So you can't just multiply out those numbers and think all those people are on the island all the time. The ordinance requires you to get a permit if you just rent short-term one night for the year. So I think that's an important point. And then recently we've been getting these comments that say, oh, these regimes and then our residential neighborhoods. So I just want to put a point out there that those regimes are residential neighborhoods. They may be multifamily, but they're still residential neighborhoods. And those people who made the life choice that they want to be residents in a condo and not in a single family home with lot maintenance and everything, they are deserving of every protection the ordinance gives for problem rentals that may be their neighbors. So I just think it's a real important thing not to go, oh, residential, single family, and the regimes, those are all residential neighborhoods. So that's just a point I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Any other comments or questions concerning the information Joe has, the analysis Joe's given us?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Joe, it would be helpful on that table you just put up there. You put up the number of short-term rentals, but if you could put up on that same table at some point, the number of actual units in each area, that would be helpful too. So we could get a better picture of how densified the rentals are in certain areas.
Yeah, we do have those numbers. When you're looking at, like, percentage of units, they can be a little bit misleading. So for example, Dolphin Point, right down near the beach club, there's only 4 units that are considered Dolphin Point, but there's 4 short-term rentals in Dolphin Point. So that one's going to look like it has 100%.
Well, you don't need to put in percent, but if you could put the number of units that are actually in there, then at least we get an understanding of it. If there are 4 and 4 are available, that clearly tells us that all of them are rental units, and it doesn't, the percentage isn't important, but the actual number of units are, I think.
Yeah, we do have that data. We have very reliable data for pretty much all of what's currently multifamily, which is the condos, the cluster homes, the townhomes, with the exception of Salt Marsh, because there's a couple of them that haven't finished yet. Where we will have a little bit more difficulty. I mean, ultimately, we have to get the number from the POA. I just haven't been able to get it yet, as far as how many undeveloped lots are still out there, because that'll give us a more exact estimate of the total percentage of single-family homes that actually have a short-term rental permit. But I did want to thank Jerry for pointing that out. Just because we have 501 does not necessarily mean at any given point in time there are 501 residences that are being rented or offered for rent. We actually did see a spike back in May and early June of this year. Obviously, we probably all know the reason for that. We had a major golf championship that happened right here in Kiowa. We know that a lot of people rented only for that week or a 2-week period. So, I mean, right off the bat, we know a certain number of those are not, come January 1 next year, they're probably not going to be renting again. So I think that number is a little bit higher than it normally would be. Now, that doesn't mean we have hundreds of them that came up during the PGA championship. By our estimate, we saw those numbers about 20 to 30 higher around PGA time than we do in a typical peak period during the summer. We had about 495 active around that time of the PGA championship. Right now, it typically settles around 470 to 475. And then again, they're not all being rented at any given point in time. These are still people's homes. So if somebody is using it for themselves or their family, of course, it's not active on the rental market when it's being used for private use, which a lot of them are during the summer season. So with the caveats that were brought up, like I said, we just wanted to give you an idea of kind of what's out there, where they are, what type of development. And, we can certainly pull that additional information to give you a better understanding of concentration within certain regimes or certain areas.
Any other questions for Joe on this topic? Hearing none. Okay, Joe, carry on.
The last item I had was just a quick update on the DSO open house that we had yesterday afternoon from 2 to 4. If anyone on the call, on the Zoom call, or who was watching, we apologize. We did have some technical difficulties towards the end of that meeting, where we actually lost the Zoom feed for a period of time. So if you were watching and weren't able to see a part of it, we do apologize for that. We did want to stress that all of the information that we discussed yesterday, including the consultant's presentation, the draft ordinance, the draft zoning map, and the zoning transition summary, all that information is available on our website at townofseabrookisland.org. You just scroll down the homepage about halfway down, and you'll see a link to the DSO open house. We will continue to accept public comments and questions from people, even if they weren't able to make that meeting yesterday afternoon. We've said we'll accept them through the end of this week. I assume we'll probably keep that link up for some period of time beyond that. We do want to make sure if folks have questions or have comments, that we give them ample opportunity to ask those questions and provide that feedback. As the mayor said, we do anticipate that we will be reconvening our advisory committee, probably for one more meeting to review the comments and feedback that we've received to date. Our hope is that we can finalize the draft after that meeting and then move it into the first step of the adoption process, which is getting it before the Planning Commission sometime either in, we're late for September, but hopefully by sometime in October. And then once it gets through Planning Commission, they've had an opportunity to review the document and provide their comments, feedback, and recommendations. It would move into council, and we would have a draft enacting ordinance prepared. There's several items that we would have to go through and actually pull. There's some language that's not in our current DSO, that's in the regular town ordinance. So we would essentially be repealing and replacing the entire DSO, but then there's also a few other sections and topics where we would have to delete some language from the town code, because that's now going to be addressed in the DSO. So we would be putting the draft adopting or enacting ordinance together, and then moving into the adoption phase, likely by November or early December. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So Joe, I would appreciate it if you would let me know if there's anything you need me to do. Since Skip Crane is relocated, he was heading up the DSO advisory committee. And if you feel you need someone in his place, please let me know.
Will do. Thank you.
Yes, Gary.
That concludes our report.
Oh, well, Joe, I have a question on the DSO. I mean, first off, congratulations on getting to the point where you did that public rollout yesterday. I've read through the draft several times, and there were just some comments that you or Paul made that helped clarify some things yesterday. I thought you guys did a great job. When we got to citizens' comments, I thought like there were 2 or 3 really good points made. The person that was out at Jenkins Point and the question about kind of the rezoning behind his house, are those the kind of things that when you like reconvene, are those addressable, do you think? Fixable? I mean, did you and Paul think like there were some things you put check marks by that said, oh yeah, maybe we should take another look at that?
Certainly. A lot of the minor issues we can make little tweaks here and there, and it's not going to be a major change to the ordinance. If we get into doing something like reestablishing another zoning district to maintain an agricultural district. Can it be done? Absolutely. Is it going to add, probably a few weeks or a month or so to the time frame? Very likely, because those are more significant changes. If we look at it, where is it just one or two parcels, and what is the likelihood of those parcels developing? That's something that would be taken into consideration. So ultimately, we would take the information, the comments to the committee, get some direction and feedback back from them as to, we'll bring some recommendations, but ultimately we'll look to them for what they think the best way of addressing the issues that were raised would be. And then there's some, my hunches, like on, there were a couple who talked about capping short-term rentals. The committee was very adamant when we got to rentals and the timeshares that was strictly a policy matter. Didn't even wade into it and just deferred to council. Of course, council adopted the short-term rental ordinance in December of last year. So my hunch is the committee is probably going to continue that position where, if it is a major policy change, they probably won't recommend any changes in their draft, but will continue their position that that's a major policy change, and if council wants to change that, then council should make that change.
So my only other question is, the county doesn't have to approve any of this, do they? Within the town limits, we're free to do this zoning ourselves?
Yes, we have our own zoning ordinance, which is adopted by us, and the county would have nothing to do with it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Joe? Joe, I think you said you'd concluded, so thank you, Joe. And I take your point about the advisory committee treating this matter of capping short-term rentals as a policy issue for council. I agree. I don't think that the advisory committee would weigh into that. Next up, reports of council members. Does any member of council wish to opine further at this time?
I have one question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Barry.
I read the memorandum understanding, and I know you presented it, but is there anybody that can provide us a little background of why this is coming up? Who initiated it? What is the intended outcome of all this?
Well, the president of the POA had proposed a cooperative effort by the organizations, and we have informal discussions every month. So we have representation for the town, the club, and the POA. And the notion that he presented was, as I said, a cooperative effort to address the vehicular backups on Seabrook Island Road. As you would understand, the backups occur, the recurring backups are essentially a consequence of people being held up at the gate for whatever reason, and then there's no place for the cars to go, and they're lined up on Seabrook Island Road. So you are aware that SAPOA is doing what they refer to as a beta test for a remote site for issuance of passes, and that's one thing they're giving a look at. But the notion here was to have the organizations pool together information that they would have and then make presentations to potential consultants to be advised about alternative solutions to the recurring problem. The club is not at this time inclined to go forward with an MOU, so it's now down to the town and the POA. My understanding is that the POA board was going to be provided the MOU for consideration, or will be provided the MOU for consideration. I'm not sure that has happened yet. I thought it was going to happen on Monday, but in any case, as I said earlier, I'm not asking you to approve the MOU at this time. We really are, I'm trying to find out, get a better feel for where the POA is on this whole notion before we undertake to actually enter into the MOU.
Thank you.
Yep. Any others? Anything? No? All right. We will now have the Utility Commission report, and I will call on Commissioner Jim Ferland to give that report. Jim, are you on?
Yep, I'm on. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm sitting in for Annie Smith Jones. And the report from the Seabrook Island Utility Commission based on our August 18th meeting. Financial report for July. We remain within normal variation of the budget for the year. Net income for the month was a surplus of just over $100,000. Year to date, an operating income of about $550,000. And after CapEx and budget service principal, we have a very small surplus of $8,000. Available cash at the end of July, just over $2.5 million. Operations report for July. The Seabrook Water Resource Facility, effluent quality continued to meet permit requirements during the month. We did pump some deep well to the golf courses in addition to normal effluent. Seabrook Water Distribution for July. We delivered just over 40 million gallons of water for the month of July compared to 28 million gallons last July. Couple updates on old business. FEMA generator installation is now complete. That's for 3 backup generators. Startup testing is underway. So just in time for hurricane season, those generators we expect to be operable. We've been working for the last couple months to update the Utility Commission Development Agreement. This is the baseline generic agreement that we use to negotiate with various developers. It had been many years since that was updated. We at the Commission have completed that review. Outside counsel has completed that review. And management is now using this new development agreement as they enter into discussions with developers going forward, beginning with Andel on that commercial tract. Staffing, just an interesting update. We had 2 open positions and we have filled them both. So that's a good thing for us in today's tight labor market. That is the end of my update. Open it up for questions if there are any.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim, please?
Just one question.
Yes.
Any reason why you went from 28 million last year to 40 million this year in the month for deliverable water?
So I had the same question for the management team. Primarily irrigation driven. Obviously, I would guess that the differential will not be that large in August, given the rainfall we've had. But for July, it was primarily irrigation.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Jim? None, hearing none. Very well. Thank you again, Jim. Excellent report.
Thank you.
Next up, petitions received, referred, disposed. I have none. And next up, ordinance for first reading, ordinance 2021-10, and ordinance amending the zoning map of the town of Seabrook Island so as to change the zoning designation for Charleston County Tax Map number 147-01-00-062, containing approximately 0.37 plus or minus acres, located at 2517 Pelican Perch, from the SR Single Family Residential District to the AGC Agricultural Conservation District. And Joe, this is ordinarily your domain. Do you have anything to add concerning the ordinance for first reading?
This is just simply a property that was acquired by Green Space, transferred to the Property Owners Association with a intent of maintaining it for open space, green space purposes. Consistent with our prior approach, the POA has requested a rezoning of the property out of single family residential and into the agricultural conservation district. Went to the Planning Commission earlier this month. Planning Commission recommended unanimously in favor of approving the rezoning request.
Very well. Yes, any questions concerning ordinance 2021-10? Hearing none. I will entertain a motion for approval on
So
first
moved.
reading of
So moved.
ordinance 2021-10.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, or discussion concerning ordinance 2021-10, an ordinance directed to rezoning?
I have one comment. I'll recuse myself from any votes on this issue.
Thank
Conflict
you.
of interest.
Thank you, Councilman Goldstein. You are recused. And with that, there are any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor of approval at first reading of ordinance 2021-10, please signify your approval by saying aye.
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 I believe with the exception of our recused council member, that was unanimous among those remaining. It is approved at first reading. And with that, we're at miscellaneous business. I have no miscellaneous business to raise at this time. Does anyone have any miscellaneous business for our meeting today? Hearing none. We will now proceed to citizens' comments. Anyone participating in the video conference and wishing to comment concerning today's proceedings may do so by clicking the raise hand button under Participants tab. Anyone participating in the telephone conference wishing to comment concerning today's proceedings may do so by pressing *9 to raise your hand. Each speaker is asked to raise their hand to speak only once. Every effort will be made to call on all speakers in the order they have raised their hands. When called on to speak, please make sure your audio is unmuted. If we call on you and do not hear anything, we will ask you to unmute yourself. If we still cannot hear you, we will move on to the next speaker. Begin your comments by stating your name and address for the record. All speakers will have up to 3 minutes during which to provide their comments. Each speaker will be informed when there are 30 seconds remaining. Once allotted time expires, the speaker's audio will again be muted. Joe, I inquire as to whether any citizen comments, anyone has raised their hand to make a comment.
I do not see any currently.
All right, I take it no one is no one has succeeded in following the instructions for raising their hand, or in fact, no one has a desire to speak. So that being my conclusion, Joe, did we receive any citizen comments during the course of the meeting?
We did have one just pop up a second ago. Let me, Lynn Baker, did you want to provide a comment?
I just wanted to let you know I know how to use the hand signal. I just don't have a comment.
Thank you. All right, I think that's it.
All right, very good. I will now close the opportunity for citizens' comments of our August council meeting. And at this point, unless anyone, any member of council or anyone participating in this call has anything that they wish to bring up, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move that we adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jerry. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning the August town council meeting, please signify your approval to adjourn by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
That makes it unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much for your participation and help with today's meeting.
See you next time.
Hey, Joe, before we leave, are we no longer live?
No, you're still live.
Oh, well, I had a question for the mayor or maybe for you. I'll just send it in an email. Because I don't want it to go out live.
All right, thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, guys. Bye.